Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Daniel, and in today's video I'll be explaining how to write your chapter 3 of your final year project. So what chapter 3 is all about is the methodology, and I've made a video on chapter 1 and chapter 2, so this is going to be a continuation. So the first thing you want to do in your chapter 3, because I explained to you in your chapter 1 that, you're just explaining, you're giving us an introduction, trying to dive on what you'll be working on. Okay, in your chapter 2, you're telling us similar works and reviews of things that has been done in relation to your research. Now in your chapter 3, you're already getting into the research itself. So you want to start telling us, okay, how do you intend on conducting this research? What are the ways in which you want to explore or implore towards your research? So the first thing you want to do is to introduce us to what your chapter 3 is about. So you need to give like an overview of your research process, and like you need to explain what your research is about and how you plan to conduct it. It's a very straightforward introduction. Just go straight to the point. Okay, I'll be doing this in my chapter 3. I'll be explaining this. I'll just go straight to the point and give us an introduction of what you plan to do in this chapter. After your introduction, then you proceed to talking about your research. So here you will explain the overview approach of your study. For example, are you trying to explore a new idea, or you want to test a theory, or you want to analyze a data? So here you just give us like an overview of the kind of research you'll be conducting, and all these points you give like in one paragraph and straight to the point. So after you talked or you've explained your research, you proceed to the next thing, which is you explaining the types of research you have and why you are going to be selecting a particular types of research. So majorly you should have the quantitative and qualitative method. So the qualitative research is all about understanding people's experience, why quantitative research deals with the numbers and statistics. And then we also have like 4 different types, which is the ones I've explained. Each of all these points you can as well just pause and read them through. So you check the types and then you see which one fits into the kind of research you're about to conduct. So we have the experimental, the pre-experimental, the non-experimental, and then the descriptive research. Most research, I mean, it depends on kind of research. I think I did a descriptive research when I was doing my undergraduate project work, but it varies. You need to know which one fits. So you need to explain the types of research that we have, and then explain, okay, this is the research I plan and I'll be working on. After that, you will then proceed to the next thing, which is your research design. For example, all my explanations on these points, you can pause the videos, explain to read further what I wrote on each section, in case you are not getting what I'm saying. But for the research design, here you will outline the strategy you used for your study. So for instance, if you are conducting a survey to gather data, that is part of your research design. You need to explain why you chose the design and how it helps you to answer your research question. So it's very also straightforward. It has to do with the it's still under your research, talking about the design in which and the strategies in which you tend to introduce in your research work. So after you've talked about your research design, then you proceed to the next thing, where you will talk about the population. So you can't have a research work without the population. So where are you planning to focus your research on? So you see some research. I think when I did my undergraduate work, I focused on University of Ibadan students. So are you focusing on a geographical location? Are you focusing on some particular area? You need to explain to them, okay, here in this session, I'm going to be focusing on high school students, and why you are focusing on high school students. Because you cannot just randomly say, okay, this research I will be focusing on university student, or let's say a particular university. Why are you choosing that particular university? So the population is where you indicate where you plan to research on and why you are choosing that particular location or area for your population. After the population, and then you need to decide your sampling size. So this means that how many people or data points you will include in your study. Your sampling size should be large enough to give you reliable results, but still manageable, but still explain why you choose this number. So there are different sampling techniques, which is what I'll explain in the next point. But your sampling size is just basically talking about how many people you intend on working on. Let's say I plan to work on University of Ibadan student. I'm using my research work as an example. I plan to work on University of Ibadan student. My sampling size can be 4,000. Why am I choosing 4,000? I cannot just generate a random number. So at times there are formulas you can use, and don't forget that there are ethical factors, ethical consideration in which you need to put in place while choosing your sampling size. So you cannot just select a random number. At times there are formulas you can use, in getting, you want to get credible research and results. So these formulas at times helps you to streamline the figures, and we also have different methods and technique which I'll explain further on the next point. So yeah, that's basically what you would do in your sampling size. So after your sampling size, then you proceed to the next thing, which is the sampling technique. This is how you choose your sampling technique for the population. So common methods include the random sampling, where everyone has an equal chance of being chosen. We have the convenience sampling or the convenience sampling. So there are also other types of sampling technique. I can't remember much, but I think I used the convenience sampling. I mean, yeah, it's convenient, but for every sampling technique we have, I think they are divided into two, and then for each one we have 4 sub under them. You can research more on sampling techniques, but these are what sampling technique is just all about is the ways in which you pick your sampling size. So you need to make sure that for any sampling technique you are picking or selecting, there should be a reason for selecting such sampling technique. So that's just basically what sampling technique is about. And don't forget, for each of these points, try to explain. Okay, you're writing your chapter 3, right? You've not started the research. Don't forget, you are still just trying to explain to us what you'll be doing when you go to the field. So make sure you explain them. I'm not just explaining them for you to know. I'm explaining them for you to write it down. That, okay, fine. In my sampling technique, this is what I'll do. This is why I'm selecting this. So explain it very well so that your supervisor can understand that, okay, fine, this is what this person is doing. So after you are done with your sampling technique, you then proceed to the next thing, which is your data collection method. So it's time to collect your data, and in the data collection session, you will explain how you gathered your information. Did you use a survey? Did you use interviews? Was it experiments? Was it questionnaires? Was it focus group discussion? There are different types of data collection method. Most supervisors tend to use both the quantitative, tend to make sure that their supervisee use both the quantitative and the qualitative method. But during my time, I used the questionnaire, which is a quantitative research method. But basically, yeah, you're just telling us that, okay, this is how I plan to collect my data. Your research varies, right? Everybody have one particular research they are working on or the other. So what you are working on will determine the kind of collection method you use. But at times you see some supervisor forcing their students to use a particular type of data collection method. So you just try as much as possible to know every type of data collection method, so that you will not be surprised if your supervisor is telling you, okay, fine, I want you to do a focus group discussion, or I want you to use an in-depth interview. Like, you won't be caught off guard. So the next thing you need to mention is your data analysis method. So this is also, well, some people find it very complicated, but trust me, once you know it for life. It is not difficult at all. So in your chapter 3, we're talking about the methodology. Everything you've been doing so far, you've not started anything. You are just telling us what you plan to do and how you plan to do them. In fact, your thesis matters a lot, because let's say your supervisor should ask you, okay, submit chapter 1 to 3. Your thesis will be different from once you are done with your chapter 4 and 5. Let's say, for example, now, I plan to conduct a research amongst University of Ibadan students, and I'll be conducting this research with a population size of 500. So, and I plan to use questionnaire. If my supervisor is asking me, okay, submit your chapter 1 to 3, I will say in my chapter 3, I will be using questionnaire to conduct this research with a sample size of 500. But once I'm done with my chapter 4 and 5, I still need to go back to my chapter 3 and change my thesis, because I'm already done, right? And whoever is reading it is going to read it from chapter 1 through to 5. So I'm not going to say I'll be anymore. I'm going to change it to I was able to, or I have gotten, or I was able to conduct this research with a sampling size of 500 with the use of questions. So I've already conducted the research. So it's something I've already done. So that was just I just wanted to chip that in. So in your data analysis method, there are different ways to analyze data. This is what you do basically in your chapter 4. But not to scare you, you need to know them, because like I said, once you know them for life. There are people who are specialized in this area. That is what they do. But I see no reason why a student or an undergraduate or a master's student cannot analyze his own data, because it's very straightforward. So we have different types of data analysis method. We have you using softwares like SPSS, Excel, and other forms of software. But I personally love using SPSS because I'm a sociology student. I will still need it, not just now, ahead. And once you know them for life. Trust me. So the data analysis method is just the method you use in processing and analyzing your data. Is that straightforward? Just the method you use in processing and analyzing your data. The data you will gather, and that's what you do in your chapter 4. So once we get to chapter 4, I will explain further on the ways in which I'll probably make a special video on ways in which you can use SPSS. So the next thing is the ethical consideration. You could say that we've been talking about a lot of things. All these are just ways in which you can make it shows that, okay, fine, I actually know what I'm doing, and I am explaining to my supervisor what I'm going to be doing. All these things I'm taking into consideration. So finally, you will be talking about the ethical consideration. So if your research involves people, it is important to show how you protect their rights and privacy. So this includes things like getting their consent and keeping their information confidential. Make sure to mention any ethical approvals you received. So what this means is that you just need to make sure their consent is very, very important, and whatever information you are getting is being confidential, because you cannot just gather data. Let's say you are conducting a research on a cult group. You need to, so there are different methods in which you could do it. You could either do it like a covert or a overt method. That is letting them know your intention. Okay, fine, I'm about to conduct this research. Are you willing to share or be open to me? You need to make sure that whatever information you are getting, you have to make sure you are not revealing any information outside their consent. And if you decide to go covert, that is not letting them know you are conducting that particular research, you won't have to do that in this type of research method, because hardly would you have to go covert. But most times you let your research, okay, only if you are conducting an experiment, let's say a psychological social experiment, that one you could go covert, just so as to get credible results. But generally, most people tend to be overt. That is, you let the people you are conducting the research on know that, okay, fine, I'm conducting this research. Are you fine with letting out this information as it will be published, or it should be provided to my supervisor? And you just need to make sure that you follow the ethical considerations. So those are like the rules and the things you need to take into consideration with your respondent, because you need to protect whatever information you are getting and their identity, just so as to avoid problems. So basically, those are the things you would indicate in your chapter 3.